About to the bench with Jeff.
That's right. Thanks, Ayub. And some tragic news there about Professor Gogo. In fact, my guest here knew of him, obviously, who doesn't know in Africa. And Professor Kingsley Moghalu is the former Nigerian deputy governor of the Nigerian Central Bank. And now he's the president of the Africa School of Governance, ASG, based out of Kigali. That's where he's from. He's based out of. And Prof, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Breaking news just happened, as we were saying, and you just mentioned, obviously,
yes,
everyone knew the professor.
Of course. I was a great admirer of Ngugi wa Thiong'o.
Your thoughts?
And his books, Petals of Blood, yeah. And, he was a great African writer. He was one of the greatest in the pantheon with people like Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, and others. Yes, great loss for Kenya, great loss for Africa, great loss for the black race.
Absolutely. And a couple of times he was shortlisted for the Nobel, remember?
Absolutely.
A couple of times.
Absolutely.
And just missed it by a whisker or whatever.
Yes. Well, of course, the Nobel is a great honor, but it's not necessarily the final determinant of who is the greatest or who is a great writer. Yeah. Many great people, great writers, missed the Nobel. No doubt. Many great writers have also gotten it.
You can't have it all.
You can't have it all.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, God rest his soul in peace, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Prof, let's come back to Africa School of Governance.
Yes.
Before this, many of us have not heard of it.
Yes.
Please explain, in as few sentences as you can, explain what is the ASG?
Yeah, the African School of Governance, the ASG, is a graduate-level public policy university that was established by a number of African heads of state and government, in particular President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Haile Mariam Desalegn, and a number of other leaders to address a problem that is really Africa's greatest problem, and that's the deficit of leadership and governance. We often think our problems are everything else other than what's the real problem. But many of those problems like, terrorism, finance, we need more finance, a lot of things, but they all come from the absence of competent, effective, visionary governance with the right mindset, the knowledge and the skills to equip Africans to address the problems of the 21st century. So that's what the ASG was established to do, to become a pipeline for the future leaders of this continent, and also to help train current leaders in leadership and governance as well.
Look, and you know this better than I do, that the majority of Africa's population of 1.3, 1.4 billion are youth, 75%.
Absolutely.
Are these the people you're tapping into? Is this the next generation of leadership?
Absolutely, because there are two major reasons that led to the founding of the African School of Governance. Two questions, fundamental questions for the continent. One, we are a continent of 1.3 billion, and 70% of them are young people, with the population set to rise in geometric proportions in the next decades. What does this mean for Africa? If we do not govern our countries well, will this population explosion, the youth quake, as we call it, bring prosperity, or will it bring security problems when people don't have the skills, when they don't have jobs? So that's number one. Number two is the problem of raw materials and minerals, where Africa believes that it is blessed with raw materials and strategic minerals, and yet remains the poorest continent in the world. And the people who don't have those minerals are the wealthy ones. We who have the minerals are poor. Why? It's an absence of competent governance, which includes economic strategy. That's one of the reasons we are where we are.
Prof, is that changing when you look across the landscape of Africa?
Yes.
And I'll come back to this, but when you look at the Sahel,
yes,
from the west, let's say most west is, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, Sudan.
Yeah.
All of them have experienced military coups
Yes.
in the last 12, 18 months.
That's right.
Is that a change of government? I mean, what do military and democracy have to do with each other?
Yes, the reason this is happening is because the promise of democracy has increasingly failed in Africa. The reason it has failed is that it was, in many respects, an artificial construct in the first place. If you go to many parts of the world, they mix democratic concepts with their traditional and cultural concepts. This is what we need to do more in Africa, to govern ourselves with systems that our people understand, not systems that were imported from the United States or imported from Parliament in England and things like that. So, and you find also that there's a heavy emphasis on politics, but there isn't enough emphasis on governance. Politics and governance are different things. They're related. People play politics to get power. But when you get power, what happens? You've got to govern and change people's lives, give them good health care, give them good education systems and skills, give them security. But this is not happening increasingly in many African countries. And then you see the resort to military coups as if it were a solution. It is not necessarily a solution. We need to go deeper than these superficial approaches to governing Africa.
You know, you're probably a lot younger than I am, but growing up in the 60s and 70s, that was the order of the day in Africa.
Yes.
Coup after coup after coup, from Ghana to Nigeria to all these countries. There were tough times then.
Absolutely.
Has the dynamic shifted?
Well, the dynamic has shifted, but the problem remains the same. I mean, in the early 90s, when the Cold War ended and the United States became sort of the superior global power, and we had a unipolar world, the push for every country to become a democracy was very strong. And then, of course, you know that many African countries have relied on foreign aid for many decades, and it's also one of the things that have underdeveloped Africa. Foreign aid is one of the things that killed Africa. And, and they were told, if you don't become a democracy, you will not get aid. And so military generals threw off their khaki uniforms and put on suits and abadas, if you're from Nigeria, yes, which we call 1,500, they started playing this game, the American presidential system, the Westminster system, but the requirements for those systems to function very well, which is an educated populace that knows what the issues are, a national vision, so that the contest for power is based on visions and ideas, not on ethnic groups and things like that, as we see a lot in Africa. These things were not there. Yeah. And that's why democracy has had problems in the continent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Prof, I want to talk more about that after the break.
Sure.
We come back to Burkina Faso and this young man who's making waves.
Sure.
Ibrahim Traore. He is lighting up the continent in his own way. It looks like the reincarnation of Thomas Sankara. We'll talk about that in a little short while.
Okay, all right.
Professor Kingsley Mugalu in the house. He's the president of the Africa School of Governance. And also tell us how people can apply. Do people apply? Do you invite people?
Yeah.
How do they get involved?
Yes.
Let's do that, folks. Take a break, come back. Plenty more in that breaking news we just told you about. Professor Gogewa Diongo, one of the most prolific writers on the continent, has passed away at the age of 87. JKLive takes a break. We'll be back. In the meantime, coming up.